No, it's good. Hey everybody, welcome on in. We are high noon with Mayco. We have Carmen here. She's going to be doing a really fun glaze demo for you all. I'm excited because I love to watch people glaze. I love glazing myself, but I love it when other people glaze and I can just sit back and relax and watch them do the work and then admire the results, right? So I have some of my favorite Mayco combos in front of me. I've shared these so many times with you all, so you know this. We're actually going to be giving away a pack of the new stoneware glazes, so if you don't have them yet, don't worry. You wait a minute, you might win, and if you don't win, you can always go to Clayscapes Pottery and use the Explore 10 code and save 10% off and you get yourself some Mayco stoneware glazes. So, hey Carmen, how you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great, thanks. Thanks for having me on today.
Oh, we are so excited to have you joining us, and we can't wait to watch you glaze.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to be here. I've got a fun little project today. It should be pretty quick, but it's like a nice educational technique that'll kind of showcase how different products work together.
Awesome.
So just go ahead and get started.
Yeah, go ahead. Go for it. We're ready.
Okay.
And as people ask, if you're watching and you have questions, just go ahead and ask and we'll get those questions to Carmen.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, guys. So to start off with, I just wanted to let you guys know who I am. My name is Carmen Allen. I work as a designer and I am the stoneware marketing specialist at Mayco here. So I run our Instagram account as well as do a lot of YouTube videos and things like that, create stoneware projects that we put out in social media for you guys to use. So that's my role here at Mayco. And today we're doing a fun kind of like summertime project. Here we're utilizing a few different products. We have our stoneware matte glazes. We have some stroke coats and designer liners. So this is like a fun project used by layering all of these kind of in a different way than you might think. So I really like this because we're actually going to do the designer liner directly on the bisque, which is kind of like the best way to use designer liner. If any of you guys have tried to use it over a glaze, you kind of have to finesse the tip so it doesn't get clogged. So doing the decorating technique directly on the bisque is a really nice way to utilize that project to its fullest potential. And that will come all the way through the glazes that we're putting on top of it. So just to go over, today we're going to be using our stroke and coat glazes at Cone 6. We're going to be using designer liners and then our matte glazes. So we have our pink matte and then this wintergreen are the two that I have featured here. And we do have a lilac matte as well that could be used with the same technique. So before we get started, I do want to go over a couple resources that we have available with Mayco. First, I want to talk about our website. Our website has all sorts of things available to it. We've got a searchable glaze combination gallery, as well as a searchable project gallery. We have a resources tab, which showcases dinnerware and food safety information. We have a product conversion chart as well on there. And then we also have our technical resources. So if you need to contact our technical team with any issues, you can contact them via our website. We have a phone number as well as an email on there. And then also we are active on social media. We've got an Instagram, a Facebook page, a YouTube, and then we do have Mayco Mudroom Society on Facebook, which is a network of potters that discuss our products and showcase different samples with that there.
I love that. I love the Facebook group. The Mayco Mudroom group is great. Anybody who's on Facebook, you need to join that group.
It is super nice. Like if you have a glaze that you like or you just bought and you just type it into the search feature, it'll showcase all of the different results that other customers have posted using that product. So that's on different clay bodies, different temperatures, different combinations. So it can really provide a lot of information, and that's like real-time use. So it's not just like me who's used the glaze for years showing you how it's going to look pretty. It's people that have been using it for their first time. So it's like a really more realistic kind of approach to seeing our glazes instead of just like in a studio setting.
Yeah, it's so great and user-friendly too.
Yeah. All right, so without further ado, we can go ahead and get started. So the first thing that I'm going to do with this project here is going to be just deciding where I want to be putting my designs. So, you know, I just kind of like these ones here, I tried to keep them a little bit evenly spaced, sort of, and so that they're not all facing the same direction. Of course, you can do any design that you want. I just chose fruits because they kind of go along with the colors of these pieces here. And I had matching stroke and coats to go along with them. So today I'm going to be doing the strawberry plate. Just because I found that this matte glaze works the best with the stroke and coat so that it pops through. So to start, I'm just going to kind of like draw circles where I want my strawberries to be, just to kind of provide an even spacing. And here I'm just using a mechanical pencil. I'm going really light-handed with it. And I'll show you a little trick that I like to do using these pencils once we get to that stage when we start actually glazing. Because I found a lot of the time with pencils, no matter what kind of pencil you get, they tend to have some sort of wax in them. So a lot of them will resist glazes unless you're using a specific glaze pencil. So here I have them spaced out. I'll start loosely drawing my strawberries. And nothing here has to be super precise. I really like using the designer liner directly onto the bisque because it's a little bit more forgiving that way. If I don't like the way something turns out, I can just wipe it right off, which I do very frequently. I'm kind of nitpicky about the different design work that I do. So there's a lot of redos when it comes to that. So having the option to fix something that I don't really like is really, really nice, which is why I love applying my details directly on the bisque like that. So here I'm gonna just kind of shape these, not having them all face in the same direction, have them all kind of different shapes, and I'll kind of nail down the shape better once I start putting my designer lines in. And the designer liner is a great product to use for work such as this. As I've mentioned before, it does work best directly onto bisque because specifically the liner design tip on it, it'll get kind of clogged depending on what you're scraping it across, which definitely makes sense. You know, it's just a little hole. If you're scraping it towards a glaze, the hole's going to get filled with glaze. So here's how our designer liners come in the package. We're just gonna take it out here and I'll just show you guys how we like to open it because you really, really want to keep track of this pin here. So I'll just shake it up a little bit. And this tip here is going to be sealed, so we're just gonna cut that off. You can also use the metal tip to poke into it if you're in a situation where you don't have scissors. But just be careful if you are cutting with scissors, don't cut all the way down here. You just want to cut that little tip off of there.
I have a few comments. People are saying, never stop making the light flux.
Never stop making the light flux. Yeah, we do not have any plans to. We actually did consider making different colored fluxes for a while, but the color choices are so subjective that we really couldn't like nail down exactly what color we would do if we ended up with a colored flux. But the light flux and the dark flux both provide such variation depending on what color it's reacting with. I'm kind of glad. I feel like it'd be almost too complicated if we ended up having more colored fluxes. Like there's too many choices sometimes,
right.
You know?
It would be too many. So we have a question. This person's a college student and they've primarily used the glazes offered in their studio there. What do you recommend they try first with the Mayco products if they're going to transition into them?
Oh man. Well, like we had just mentioned, flux, both of our fluxes actually do work really, really well with a variety of glazes. And I kind of like to think of it as a glaze enhancer. So if you have your studio glazes, like your college glazes that are just like made in-house, and you just want to give them a little extra oomph, layering flux with them is a great way to add mobility as well as color variation to these glazes. So that's kind of like a nice way that you don't have to change glazes that you're familiar with, but you can have a little bit more play with those products. So that would be definitely a good place to start, but also looking at our glaze combo gallery, kind of understanding how our products work together. That would be a great way to start trying to find a glaze that you personally find works well with your aesthetic, because everyone likes something different. Some people like glazes that melt a lot. Some people like glazes with crystals. Some people like a beautiful flat opaque finish, so it's kind of hard to make a precise recommendation to anyone, but definitely looking at our glaze combo gallery as well as checking out our fluxes would be probably a good way to start. Thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so I've got my designer liner. I think I did show you guys how to do everything. So this is how we kind of try to keep track of our little pin here. So at least you don't have to try to find a pin just on the table by itself, which gets lost pretty easily. Even with the bag, it still gets lost pretty easily, but it's a little bit easier to keep track of. It doesn't roll away. So I'll just use this. And then when I'm done, I just store the designer liner like that. Just so it doesn't get clogged, because you do want to put that tip in to avoid it getting clogged. And the designer liner, I'll just prime it here just to make sure it's flowing, because there will be sometimes a little air bubble. So I like to just like do a little zigzag here so that I know it's all ready to go. All right. And with designer liners, I like to do a nice quick line with it. This is not a dimensional product at all. So I'm not trying to put on, as much liner as I can get. And these ones are fun. I like to do these loose little leaves here. So I don't know if you guys can hear, but I'm literally scraping this like on the bisque. And that's kind of what I found is a nice way to make sure I'm not putting the product on too thick, because if I just drop the product on, it kind of has to be a certain amount of thickness, as you can see there. And that you're playing a risky game. If it does get too thick, the designer liner can pop off of your piece, either in the firing or as it's drying. So that's definitely something that you want to keep in mind. I'm going to just pick this up because I have an easier time lining stuff when I can maneuver it. So again, all these are really loose, simple lines. And this product, it's kind of similar to an underglaze, so it's not going to have a glossy finish or anything like that. It is a bit more pigmented, and it does not have gum in it. So that's kind of how we distinguish it from an underglaze. I like this product specifically for line work, both out of the bottle and when I'm brushing, because of the fact that it doesn't have as much gum in it. It goes on a lot smoother. When I'm using it with a paintbrush, if I just dip the paintbrush in a little bit of water, I can get a really, really long drag out of my brush with a line that is really, really fine. So that's something that I think is really important for the kind of design work that I personally like to do. So that's why I really like this product. So we've got these loose little strawberries on here. I'll get the seeds on. And these seeds are actually, I thought they looked like really good little strawberry seeds, just like do a little dot and pulling up. So just going all the way around here. And we do have a handful of glazes that are semi-opaque or translucent that work really well with this application of designer liner. So applying it to the bisque, using a translucent glaze, of course, is really nice, but there are a handful of glazes that look opaque, but this kind of design work would come through them, such as the ones that I have featured here. We're using our pink matte and our lilac matte. And both of those look like they're opaque, but this design work comes through them really, really well. Our variegated glazes are good for that as well. So we have a weathered blue glaze, a lemon meringue, our Mayco Chino, and matte Mayco Chino. So those 4 glazes, they all appear opaque, but if you do line work like this directly on the bisque and apply the glaze on top of them, the design work will come through the glaze seamlessly, actually, which is pretty cool. On some of these, like, so this glaze, this wintergreen glaze, it has a tendency to build up. And actually I have an example here of the lilac matte. So this lilac matte, I applied it too thick over top of my design work. So if I had brushed these coats thinner, these grapes would have come through a lot better than they did here. Whereas this pink matte, I brushed it out a little bit more so I don't get that cloudy kind of distortion of the image there. You can see like a nice comparison. So there's nuances to everything, as I'm sure all of you guys know, since you're involved in ceramics. But just in general, the design work will come through on these. So that's really nice. All right.
So someone was asking about the designer liners. Can you maintain a dimension for flooding like you would with a sugar cookie? Like, can you use them like that?
No, it's just a liner product. So you do not want to do anything dimensional or something like that. I have seen some people kind of like fill in the areas, but it's not going to be high enough of a shape that you can like pool anything into it like you would a sugar cookie or something like that. If you start applying it really thick like that, that's when you're going to start having cracking in your lines. It might just pop off before the firing, or even worse, after or during the firing. So that's just something I would avoid. Designer liner, you just want to do it for line work. It's not a dimensional product at all.
Okay. And can this go on greenware, or does it have to go on bisqueware?
It definitely can go on greenware. Kind of like how I said before, it does work best on bisqueware. You just have to be careful of the way you're applying it. So when I'm applying it over top of glaze or over top of greenware, basically I just make sure to be moving away from where I'm going. So if that makes any sense. So I'm always pulling my designer liner so that the hole is not facing the product. If I start going like this or going like this, I'm just shoving either clay or glaze up into that tip, and it's going to get clogged really fast. So that's just something to keep in mind. You definitely can use it on greenware. Again, you don't want to apply it too thick. So kind of being careful with the perfect amount of speed on the greenware while you're not clogging the tip. But it is similar to an underglaze, so it is going to work on the greenware.
And do these leave any texture? Like you said, they're non-dimensional. Do they leave any bit of a raised surface at all?
It definitely can have a raised surface depending on what you're putting on top of it. So like this project specifically, you can't really feel the lines. I have used it underneath other more stiff glazes. I think that the lines kind of disappear on here because the stroke and coat is kind of like melting over it. But I think if it was on like a little bit stiffer of a glaze, you might be able to see it. Or if I applied a clear glaze kind of thin, you might see it through something like that. So it's not intended to be put on thick, but it definitely can leave a little bit of a shape to it.
Then these temperature wise, can they go high and low fire? Can they go all ranges?
Yes, ma'am. Yep. So we recommend them from cone 06 up to cone 10. When we go up to higher temperatures, we do say that our green one, so I think it's 406, SG 406 is the number of it. We have 2 greens. We have a bright green and a regular green. The regular green will react with a zinc clear. So just like a lot of underglazes at this temperature, we recommend using a zinc-free clear with that if you wanted to stay that like forest green color. And then the purple does fade a little bit, but all of these results are posted on our website. So if you do want to see it at different temperatures, I believe that we have cone 06 and cone 6 results on our website. I don't recall that we have cone 10 right now, but the cone 6 does speak to the cone 10 results.
Okay. And can this go on the bottom of the pot or will they stick? Do they act like an underglaze so you could put on the bottom of the pot and not stick to your shelf?
Yes, absolutely. We definitely encourage people to sign their work with these. At cone 6, it's not going to fire to your shelf or anything. Again, don't glob it on. I have seen it stick or like at least like kind of impress onto a shelf if it's on really, really thick. So just try to be quick with that hand, do nice thin lines, or if you use it with a brush, that's an even better way to avoid globbing it on too heavy. But it is going to perform like an underglaze. It doesn't flux.
Thank you.
All right. Are we ready to put some glaze
Yeah.
on here?
Go. Yes, let's glaze away.
So the next thing I'm going to do is add our stroke and coat. So our stroke and coat glazes, we manufactured them basically for painting and pottery studios to be fired to cone 06. But as we've kind of like leaked over into the stoneware market as a company, we've tested all of our products at different temperatures, and the stroke and coat glazes really hold up super well. I think last month I put a video out showcasing stroke and coats with design work at cone 6, which it is a little bit nuanced using design work. We do have a video on YouTube if you want to check it out. It's stroke and coat versus stoneware gloss glazes, kind of a compare and contrast. That's on there. But as you can see here, there is a little bit of movement with these stroke and coats at cone 6. So I like to recommend to use them to add pops of color, to do shape blocking. If you're not layering it with another glaze, they'll stay in their place a little bit better, but not doing like crispy, clean, like you don't want to do a beautiful painting at cone 6 with our stroke and coats. We do have our cone 6 results for those posted on our website as well. So if you check out our stroke and coat page on our website, we do have 06 and cone 6 results listed there. So you can kind of get an idea as to what colors are going to fade or if any change at all. All right, I don't have my little plate here, so I put this on a bag, but I'm just going to do 2 coats of stroke and coat on here. And since this layering does create some mobility with it, I want to pull my stroke and coat out pretty thin. So I'm a pretty heavy glazer, so I'll usually load my brush up pretty thick here. And this, I think, might even end up being too much for this single strawberry. I kind of like to offset the strawberry shape because I love the way the lines come through. Oh my gosh, I didn't show you guys my trick. Dang it.
What color stroke and coat again is that?
Like, okay, so you can kind of see here how the stroke and coat it pulls away from this with the pencil here. Basically, what I like to do is take a sponge and it's too late to do it now, dang it. I'm so sorry, guys. So yeah, I don't have my sponge here, but you'll basically just take a sponge and dab it on the pencil so that the pencil lead still stains your bisque, but you've removed the bulk of the darkness of the line. And for some reason, that always gets rid of that, like just enough of the wax that I can glaze over it without getting these little pinholes here. And that's all that is basically just the wax from the pencil resisting the glaze.
What shade of stroke and coat was that again that you're using?
Oh, yes. It is Cutie Pie Coral. I love this one at cone 6. The color doesn't change very much. And it's one of the warmer colors that doesn't get an orange peel effect on it. So with our stroke and coat glazes, if you're using oranges or reds, I always recommend to pull your coats really thin with those. Just do 2 coats that you've pulled out really thin to avoid any sort of texture. Those pigments just kind of fight us at those higher temperatures. So sometimes if it's applied too thick, you can get a little bit, we just call it an orange peel texture, or just like small little pinholing that happens.
And then we had a question about the designer liners. Would they be good for mono printing?
For mono printing, so like a transfer kind of thing?
Yeah, so you would put them on a sheet of like newsprint paper and then transfer them over onto your clay.
Yes, yes, yes. I have done that previously, and it kind of performed. If you've ever done it with underglazes, it's going to be basically the same thing, and
Okay.
as in terms of its performance in that technique.
And then can you recommend a purple that is true purple at cone 6 that stays purple?
Oof. So I guess it just depends on what you mean by a true purple. My go-to purple for cone 6 is Fruit of the Vine. It does melt a little bit and it turns into this beautiful, like opalescent kind of purple. So it's going to have some variation. It's not just going to be like a flat purple. But I really appreciate the way that that one looks. Most of the purples do end up leaning a little bit blue. Any of the purples that lean red tend to kind of fade out. Or like if they have pink in them, I guess those are the ones that fade. If you're thinking of like a true purple, we do manufacture a purple gloss glaze in our stoneware glaze line. I believe it's SW505. Now that's going to be your tried and true, like flat, like purple. You know, there's not going to be any interaction or melting, just totally opaque purple there. So I've got one coat on these. I'm going to do a second coat, just kind of brushing these out. So hopefully this second coat will, I am doing a little bit of extra brushing to try to kind of fill in these little dot resist areas. And because I'm brushing the glaze out a lot. Most of the, if I was doing this at low fire, I would just be globbing this glaze on a lot thicker. Sturgeon coats are pretty forgiving at that temperature, but you definitely have to anticipate the additional melt that's occurring when you're bringing a glaze up higher than its intended temperature.
Now here's a question. Could the designer liner be applied on top of colored glazes or under glazes instead?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I actually just recently did a project where I'm applying it over underglazes. And I did fire the underglazes ahead of time because I was doing this kind of squiggly work. But it does work great over underglazes. Like I said, it's kind of similar to an underglaze. If you're applying it over stoneware glazes, that's going to be something that's going to be pretty dependent upon what glaze you're applying it on top of. So if you're applying it on top of a glaze that has mobility, you should not expect it to stay where you put it. If you are applying it over a glaze that at stoneware temperatures that's glossy and is not mobile, sometimes the designer liner will pick up on the gloss too. So you can save yourself a clear glaze by just applying it over something else that's glossy and firing it to cone 6. It kind of absorbs that flux that's in the glaze underneath it, which is kind of nice. Since the if you did put a clear glaze over it, that would cause a reaction with the underlying stoneware glaze that you're using.
We have a few people asking, what brush are you using?
That's a great question. I did mean to go over that with you. Thank you for asking. Here I'm using our, I don't know if you guys can read this number 6 CB 106 script liner. This brush is seriously one of my favorite brushes. It's great for doing little brushwork. So if I'm trying to do like flower petals or something like that, and I want my brush to come out to a little tip, once this is loaded, you can kind of see how it has a nice fine little tip on it. So you can do fine details, but it really does just load up so nicely with this glaze. So if I'm glazing design details such as this, I think it's really easy to use a stiff brush and kind of just almost scrape the glaze off more than you're applying it on. So using this kind of soft natural fiber brush is a really great way to keep your brush nice and plumped up and really just layer the glaze on here nice and thick, because you do want to build up a glaze in order for it to work properly. It's not going to be the same as if you're just using like a acrylic paint or something. So yeah, so that's our 2 coats of the stroke and coat. We've got Cutie Pie Coral, just to reiterate that. I guess you probably can't read it. This is kind of an old bottle. But the Cutie Pie Corals here, that's what we've put on. So to start, we did designer liner. Next, our 2 coats of Cutie Pie Coral. I'll let these kind of set up a little bit, and then we'll start doing our matte glaze over top of it. And then that's all you have to do to end up with this. So it's kind of cool how all this comes through there. I do want to go over a little bit about this green one here. So I've showcased the lilac matte and the pink matte glazes. So both of those glazes are in the same category of glaze. So they're both just like stiff, like soft matte finishes. Whereas our wintergreen glaze, it kind of appears similar to those glazes, but it does have a little bit more variation in its performance. This glaze produces the color a little bit more easily. So our matte glazes, we recommend 3 to 5 coats to produce opaque coverage. Whereas this glaze, it's just our regular 3 coats. And on this project specifically, I only did 2 coats because this glaze has more of a tendency to kind of like cloud up how this one did. So this one I applied 5 coats just to kind of showcase what happens if you put too much glaze on top of here. And this one I applied 2 coats to avoid that from happening because it's more likely to happen with this green glaze here. And the wintergreen glaze is actually the same base as alabaster. So it's going to perform really similar to alabaster in combination, whereas it's going to add mobility. It adds microcrystals. It just has like a nice soft green appearance with it. So this one is a little bit of an outlier as far as performance goes, but aesthetically for this specific project, it fits in.
I love those bowls. I think they're great.
Yeah, they turned out really fun. I did this little design with a little flower before, and then another designer here suggested I try with different glazes, and I'm really glad with the palette that we ended up with the purple too. If the purple looked how it's supposed to look, I guess. And then, okay, so we'll start doing our matte glaze. So here we have our SW162 pink matte. Sorry, I'm trying to give it a nice little shake. And here I only applied 3 coats and brushed them out pretty thin, again, to avoid that cloudiness that happens. So here is my favorite glazing brush. So we have 2 different sizes of these. We have our number 4 size, and then we have a number 8 size. This is our number 4 size, which I like to use when I'm trying to control the amount of glaze I'm putting on a little bit more. If I have something that I'm just kind of slapping glaze on and applying it pretty thick, that's when I would want to use the number 8 size. That's a little bit bigger. So as you guys have probably seen, like usually I like to really, really load up these brushes just to make sure I'm putting enough glaze on. And since this glaze is a little bit particular about how much you're putting on, and I'm putting it on like kind of the thin side, I'm really paying attention to my brush strokes, which is why I'm using this kind of smaller brush so I can be a little bit more controlled with the application. So my normal hand would definitely have ridges coming through with this coat here. But since I'm trying to be controlled about it, I'm just going to brush it out as much as I can. Trying not to overwork it because as you resaturate that designer liner, you can smear it. So definitely work very intentionally and a little bit quickly. Just with this first coat, once you have your first coat on and it's nice and dry, you're not going to have to worry about saturating that designer liner again. So we're still getting some of those pencil resists popping through, but by the 3rd coat, we should be pretty good there. So if you guys can see here, it's a pretty smooth application. I don't have a lot of globs dripping up like that or anything. And then once I'm on my 2nd and 3rd coat, I'll actually be using the banding wheel to help apply it a little bit more evenly. just so if I do have any brush strokes showing that at least they're in a consistent format rather than being just kind of cross-hatched or really, really inconsistent.
Great, we've got 3 minutes left. We went over it. We're over a little bit, but
we
I
are.
got 3 minutes.
Cool. I don't have my
12:37. I'm just keeping you up on time. So yeah, we can go to 12:40, but then we have to get the next person on. Sorry.
Yeah,
I
no,
I mean, Carmen, we should have you. No, I mean, we should have you come back and do more with us longer outside of Clay Share Day, because I know you're a wealth of information. We got tons of questions from folks, and so everybody, I know there's a lot of questions off topic. I'm not going to get to those today, sadly, because we won't have time. But we'll have Carmen back in maybe for more Q&A and tutorial, more demo.
Yeah, I would definitely love to come back. I basically went over everything you need to know about this project. I'm just going to do 3 coats, and then on the rim and the back, I'm going to do 3 coats of this black gloss. So that's pretty much the whole project for you. If anybody has any questions or about this project, feel free to shoot me an email too. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I would definitely love to come back onto Clay Shares and do any projects outside of Clay Share Days. So my email is callen, CALLEN @maycocolors.com. So if you guys have anything pertaining to this, or just hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, I monitor those as well. I'd be happy to answer anything that you got for me. So thanks so much for having me today, guys.
Thank you so much. I wish we could just go for a full hour.
I know. I just like never stop.
I know. Thank you so much, Carmen. So everybody, if you have questions for Carmen, go ahead and email her. You know, she gave you her email. We'll put that up too on ClayShare, so you guys will have that. Now, we have one thing left to do before we go, because we're going to give away the new glazes, the new Mayco glazes, which includes my favorite new one, the Cenote. I love this glaze. It is so yummy. It's yummy on its own. It's yummy with flux, with light and dark flux. Any flux you want to put on it, it is amazing. So the winner of the Stoneware Glaze pack is Hannah Jenkins. Hannah, congratulations. My dear, you've won yourself some Mayco Stoneware glazes, and we will get that info. We'll email you and email Mayco and get that all connected. So next we have a demo coming up with Jeff from GR Pottery Forms. I love Jeff. He is great. He's been with ClayShare since basically the beginning, and I can't wait to see what he has to share with us today. All right, everybody, I'll see you back here at 1 o'clock for the demo. Until then, grab yourself a snack, get yourself a drink, stretch, limber up, you know, get ready.